The Obstacle is the Way. By Ryan Holiday. This summary is brought to you by HookmyBook. In this book, the author discusses how most people are paralyzed by obstacles in their life. The author gives examples of people who overcame these obstacles and how they did it. He also discusses how earlier generations faced worse problems and were still successful. The author argues that we need a method and framework for understanding and dealing with obstacles in our life in order to be successful. The author writes about how great people in history have all faced obstacles and turned them into fuel for their ambition. It is not always easy, but with effort, anyone can be successful. The obstacles that lie before us. In an old Zen story, the king put a large boulder in the middle of the main road, so that people would have to go around it. But one person didn't give up, and he was able to get around it by using a lever to dislodge the boulder. Beneath the rock were a purse of gold coins and a note from the king, which said, "The obstacle in the path becomes the path." Never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition. Even though the obstacles in our life can be really big, we can still overcome them if we are persistent and focus on our goals. Our generation needs an approach to overcoming obstacles and thriving amid chaos more than ever. One that will help turn our problems on their heads, using them as canvases on which to paint masterworks. This flexible approach is fit for an entrepreneur or an artist, a conqueror or a coach. The discipline of perception. John D. Rockefeller was born into poverty, but he used his bad times as an opportunity to learn and become successful. He was able to resist the temptation to be greedy or panicked, and this made him successful in the stock market. Was he born extraordinary? No. This was learned behavior. And Rockefeller got this lesson in discipline somewhere. It began in that crisis of 1857 in what he called the School of Adversity and Stress. He once said, "I shall never cease to be grateful for the 3.5 years of apprenticeship and the difficulties to be overcome, all along the way." Many people experienced the same perilous times as Rockefeller. They all attended the same school during bad times. But few reacted as he did. Not many had trained themselves to see opportunity inside this obstacle, that what befell them was not unsalvageable misfortune but the gift of education, a chance to learn from a rare moment in economic history. You will come across obstacles in life, fair and unfair. And you will discover, time and time again, that what matters most is not what these obstacles are but how we see them, how we react to them, and whether we keep our composure. You will learn that this reaction determines how successful we will be in overcoming or possibly thriving because of them. Where one person sees a crisis, another can see an opportunity. Where one is blinded by success, another sees reality with ruthless objectivity. Where one loses control of emotions, another can remain calm. Desperation, despair, fear, powerlessness, these reactions are functions of our perceptions. You must realize, nothing makes us feel this way, we choose to give in to such feelings. Recognize your power. The author says that even though a situation may be bad, it is possible to view it differently and see the opportunity for growth. He gives the example of a person who is in prison and had to spend 19 years fighting for their freedom. When he finally walks out, he resumes his life as if nothing happened. This is an example of how perception can change a situation, even if the event itself remains the same. Just because your mind tells you that something is awful or evil or unplanned or otherwise negative doesn't mean you have to agree. Just because other people say that something is hopeless or crazy or broken to pieces doesn't mean it is. We decide what story to tell ourselves. Or whether we will tell one at all. Ulysses S. Grant was also able to remain calm under pressure while fighting in the Civil War and during battles in the Overland Campaign. Grant is an example of someone who has steadied their nerves, which is important in any situation. Control your emotions. The author writes about the dangers of panic and how to train yourself to not panic in dangerous or difficult situations. When people panic, they make mistakes, override systems, and stop thinking clearly. For example, in space, the difference between life and death lies in emotional regulation. When America raced to send the first men into space, they trained the astronauts in one skill more than in any other: the art of not panicking. When you are faced with a threatening situation, it is important to ask yourself if you need to panic and if you can control yourself. Uncertainty and fear are relieved by authority. Training is authority. It's a release valve. With enough exposure, you can adapt out those perfectly ordinary, even innate, fears that are bred mostly from unfamiliarity. Practice objectivity. Objectivity means removing you, the subjective part, from the equation. Just think, what happens when we give others advice? Their problems are crystal clear to us, the solutions obvious. Something that's present when we deal with our obstacles is always missing when we hear other people's problems, the baggage. With other people, we can be objective. Think of all the ways that someone could solve a specific problem. No, think. Give yourself clarity, not sympathy. There'll be plenty of time for that later. It's an exercise, which means it takes repetition. The more you try it, the better you get at it. The more skilled you become in seeing things for what they are, the more perception will work for you rather than against you. Alter your perspective. George Clooney had a lot of difficulties getting roles in Hollywood because the producers and directors didn't seem to like him. However, after he changed his perspective and started projecting that he was the right person for the job, he started getting roles more easily. The difference between the right and the wrong perspective is everything. How we interpret the events in our lives, our perspective, is the framework for our forthcoming response, whether there will even be one or whether we'll just lie there and take it. Where the head goes, the body follows. Perception precedes action. Right action follows the right perspective. Think differently. Steve Jobs had a reality distortion field which made him not believe in phrases like, "it can't be done," or "we need more time." He believed that with enough hard work, anything was possible. He was confident in his vision and his ability to achieve it, even if it was unrealistic. This made him successful in his career and in his products. The discipline of action. Demosthenes was born sickly and frail with a nearly debilitating speech impediment. At 7 years old, he lost his father. And then things got worse. The large inheritance left to him, intended to pay for tutors and the best schools, was stolen by the guardians entrusted to protect him. They refused to pay his tutors, depriving him of the education he was entitled to. Demosthenes had a lot of disadvantages when he was growing up, but he didn't let them stop him from becoming one of the greatest orators in Athens. He overcame his obstacles by working hard and practicing his speeches. To conquer his speech impediment, he devised his strange exercises. He would fill his mouth with pebbles and practice speaking. He rehearsed full speeches into the wind or while running up steep inclines. He learned to give entire speeches with a single breath. And soon, his quiet, weak voice erupted with booming, powerful clarity. He was never afraid to stand up to his enemies in court, and he eventually won back everything that was taken from him. Demosthenes' reputation as an orator, his ability to command a crowd and his peerless knowledge of the intricacies of the law, were worth more than whatever remained of a once great fortune. If you're facing a difficult situation, remember to stay motivated and take action. Born with nothing, into poverty, strife, or the chaos of decades past, certain types of people succeeded as they focused on the one thing that mattered, applying themselves with gusto and creativity. Get moving. In the 1920s, Amelia Earhart was discouraged from becoming a great aviator because of the sexism at the time. She didn't let that discourage her, and instead took a job as a social worker. Then, one day, a man called offering to fund a female transatlantic flight. But the conditions put forth by the man were insulting and discouraging. Still, Earhart accepted, and within 5 years became the first woman to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic. Despite this initial success, she would not have achieved her later accomplishments if she didn't take the opportunity when it was presented to her. She is an example of how people who defy the odds tend to do, by starting anywhere, anyhow. Although the conditions may not be perfect, you must always be moving forward in order to achieve your goals. Practice persistence. In order to achieve something great, you must be persistent and resist giving up. It may not be easy, but it will eventually work. Remember, you are not going to outsmart or outcreate the obstacle. Remember, your first attempts aren't going to work. It's going to take a lot out of you, but energy is an asset we can always find more of. It's a renewable resource. Stop looking for an epiphany, and start looking for weak points. Stop looking for angels, and start looking for angles. There are options. Settle in for the long haul and then try every possibility, and you'll get there. Do your job, do it right. In the 1800s, President Andrew Johnson and other men who had humble beginnings became successful politicians by doing their jobs well. Doing your job, no matter what it is an opportunity to be your best and achieve your goals. Sometimes, on the road to where we are going or where we want to be, we have to do things that we'd rather not do. But this doesn't stop us from trying our best. What's right is what works. You've got your mission, whatever it is. To accomplish it, like the rest of us, you're in the pinch between the way you wish things were and the way they are, which always seem to be a disaster. How far are you willing to go? What are you willing to do about it? Scratch the complaining. No waffling. No submitting to powerlessness or fear. You can't just run home to mommy. How are you going to solve this problem? How are you going to get around the rules that hold you back? Maybe you'll need to be a little more cunning or conniving than feels comfortable. Sometimes that requires ignoring some outdated regulations or asking for forgiveness from management later rather than for permission, which would be denied, right now. But if you've got an important mission, all that matters is that you accomplish it. Use obstacles against themselves. Gandhi didn't fight for independence for India, the British Empire did all the fighting and, as it happened, all the losing. Gandhi's extensive satyagraha campaign and civil disobedience show that action has many definitions, not always moving forward or even obliquely. It can also be a matter of positions, a matter of taking a stand. Sometimes you overcome obstacles not by attacking them but by withdrawing and letting them attack you. You can use the actions of others against themselves instead of acting them. Weak compared to the forces he hoped to change, Gandhi leaned into that weakness, exaggerated it, and exposed himself. He said to the most powerful occupying military in the world, "I'm marching to the ocean to collect salt in direct violation of your laws." He was provoking them. What are you going to do about it? There is nothing wrong with what we're doing, knowing that it placed authorities in an impossible dilemma: enforce a bankrupt policy or abdicate. We can use the things that block us to our advantage, letting them do the difficult work for us. Sometimes this means leaving the obstacle as is, instead of trying so hard to change it. The harder Bucephalus ran, the sooner he got tired out. The more vicious the police response to civil disobedience, the more sympathetic the cause becomes. The more they fight, the easier it becomes. The harder you fight, the less you'll achieve, other than exhaustion. So it goes with our problems. Channel your energy. Arthur Ashe was an amazing tennis player who was able to control his emotions on the court while still playing with a bold and graceful form. He was able to do this because he was free and allowed his emotions to fuel his playing. Other players, who are not free, cannot do the same thing. To be physically and mentally loose takes no talent. That's just recklessness. That's called anxiety. It doesn't work. Eventually, we snap. But physical looseness combined with mental restraint is powerful. It's a power that drives our opponents and competitors nuts. They think we're toying with them. It's maddening, like we aren't even trying, like we've tuned out the world. Like we're immune to external stressors and limitations on the march toward our goals. The discipline of the will. Abraham Lincoln had a long and difficult journey to becoming the 16th President of the United States, and he faced many challenges along the way. One of these was his battle with depression, which was not fully understood or appreciated at the time. Depression was a unique experience that prepared him for greater things, and Lincoln learned to endure all of this. Because of this, he was able to lead the nation through its most difficult and painful trial, the Civil War. Lincoln's words were powerful because he was able to communicate his experiences and feelings to the public. He was also able to be strong and decisive during difficult times, and he embodied the Stoic maxim of sustain et abstain. This maxim means that one should bear the pain and continue with their task. Lincoln's experiences as a leader during the Civil War were essential in helping him to be a successful leader in other times. Build your inner citadel. Theodore Roosevelt had asthma throughout his childhood, which made everyday activities very difficult. Despite this, he still managed to become determined and train his body so that he would not have to struggle with asthma anymore. This determination and preparation helped him achieve many great things in his life, such as becoming the 26th President of the United States. The path of least resistance is a terrible teacher. We can't afford to shy away from the things that intimidate us. We don't need to take our weaknesses for granted. Love everything that happens. Your obstacle may not be so serious or violent, but they are nevertheless significant and outside your control. They warrant only one response, a smile. As the Stoics commanded themselves, cheerfulness in all situations, especially the bad ones. Who knows where Edison and Johnson learned this epithet, but they clearly did. Something bigger than yourself. James Stockdale was shot down in North Vietnam in 1965. He spent those few minutes contemplating what awaited him down below and realized that he would not dare think about himself. He would rather hurt himself than contribute, even against his will, to hurting or undermining others. This realization helped him set up a network of support for his fellow prisoners and lead them to victory. Ever since we were born, we've been struggling and feeling pain. It's natural and okay to feel these things, but it's important to remember that there are other people out there who are going through the same thing. When we're feeling down, remember to think about the people who are suffering and how we can help them. End of the summary. Thanks for listening.